Are you a people pleaser? Do you need to be needed? Codependency is a strained relationship dynamic that is dependent upon the feelings and behaviors of others for your well-being. It says, if you're okay, I'm okay. If you're not okay, I'm not okay. So I need you to be okay so I can feel okay. And if you're a caregiver at heart, but find yourself suffering in strained relationships with toxic takers, I've got just what you need. My new online course, Conquering Codependency Biblically, was created just for you to help you overcome compassion fatigue, build a healthy self and God esteem, stop relying on others for your emotional well-being, and go from people pleasing to God pleasing, and so much more. So if you are ready to stop walking on eggshells and start walking in boldness, go ahead and check out Conquering Codependency Biblically. I will go ahead and include a link in the description section below. Okay, now back to the video. Have you ever encountered that person that made you feel like you had to walk on eggshells? You never knew what words or looks or actions were going to set them off or offend them. Here, you're just trying to have a healthy relationship, but instead you find yourself constantly caught off guard by yet something else that you said or did that this person is put off by. It's bad enough when you offend somebody and they keep coming back to you and telling you how much you offended them. But it's actually worse when you have a person who doesn't even communicate those offenses. And you're the one left having to figure it out. Why? Because the environment is tense and it's uncomfortable, and they're literally expecting you to figure it out through their manipulative, passive-aggressive behaviors. Whew! What do you do? And you understand that they take work, and you're even willing to hear where you've gone wrong and apologize for the areas that you need to. But what do you do when you're continually offending somebody? And that's why I want to talk to you today about the 5 undeniable traits of easily offended people that you are going to need to watch out for. My friends, if we are just meeting for the first time, my name is Kris Reece, and it is my heart to bring you biblical solutions to life's tough challenges. So if you are not part of this community, I would ask that you go ahead and hit that subscribe and notification button so you don't miss a thing. And hey, while you're down there, would you do me a favor and go ahead and hit that like button? I greatly appreciate it. So Proverbs 19:11 says, "Good sense makes one slow to anger, and it is his glory to overlook an offense." People who get easily offended can display their discontent in 2 ways, either overtly or covertly. Overtly offended people come out of their face right away in their outward expression of their issues with you. They have no problem in telling you how much you've ticked them off or how much you've hurt them once again. And they may even be aggressive to the point of like bullying and intimidation. Now, covertly offended people, on the other hand, are less in-your-face type than their overt counterparts. And they believe that this makes them more of a good person. But covertly offended people are actually a little bit more dangerous, in my opinion, than their overt counterpart. They're the type that will actually smile to your face, but silently stew in their feelings towards you. They are the type that says they forgive you and says it was no big deal, but instead they're just adding it to their list of offenses. And they go on lying to get you to believe that they're okay with you and you should be okay with them. Meanwhile, they're stewing in that offense. They are completely offended by you. And whether you're dealing with an obnoxious overt or a cunning covert, what is it about these people that makes them so easily offended and difficult to be around? And the question that remains for today is, should I just write them off? So let's talk about 5 traits of easily offended people that you are going to need to watch out for. Before we dive in, my friend, I want to encourage you to grab a copy of our Toxic People Survival Guide. This is my gift to you. If you want to learn how to identify and deal with the difficult people in your life, go ahead and grab this guide. We will drop a link in the chat, and if you're watching on the replay, it will be in the description section below. The number 1 trait of easily offended people is insecurity. Easily offended people often find themselves looking for validation from others, and they have a hard time brushing off the little things. And all of this is going to be based in their insecurity. Oh, yes, yes, yes. They're going to say things like, oh, I'm confident in who I am and I don't care what others think of me, but it just simply isn't true. It really is just a mask to hide the tremendous insecurity that lies behind all of this. In fact, as an aside, I want you to always be cautious of people who are trying to convince you that they are one way without actually showing you the evidence. I have found this repeatedly with so many areas in life. If somebody feels like they have to continually tell you, here's the first thought that comes into my mind. I'm thinking to myself, are you trying to convince me or yourself or both of us? Because you're not convinced. If you have to keep telling me that you are a man of integrity, if you have to keep telling me that you don't care what anybody else thinks, you're actually telling me the complete opposite. Because most people that feel this way and think this way and truly are that way, they don't feel the need to have to continually put it out there. So just look for the evidence. That's a little bit of an aside. Insecure people struggle with self-worth, and as a result, they're constantly scanning their surroundings for validation to feel good. And that is where you come in. In their mind, you are there to validate them and prop them up. And when this doesn't happen, either intentionally or unintentionally, if you don't make them feel good about who they are, there's a problem. In fact, it's you. You're the problem. Not the insecurity that they're struggling with, not the things that you just called out. The fact that you called it out makes you the problem. So when someone comes along and says something that disrupts their narrative, I was going to say their delusional narrative, because a lot of times with insecure people, they create this false narrative in their head because that's what helps them to feel good, but it's a little bit delusional. And if someone comes along and disrupts that, there's going to be a problem. Now they're going to get offended. Being offended actually can make insecure people feel more empowered, and it allows them to make others feel guilty. They love that position of power because remember, I'm insecure. So now if I have a position of power, I'm going to feel more secure. Don't get me wrong, they're all false feelings, but it is what's taking place inside of the mind of someone who is easily offended because they are insecure. They love that position of power because their self-worth is so low. That power makes them feel more secure. So they love being able to make you feel guilty. And then if you come under that guilt and condemnation, well, that's a whole other ballgame. And we're going to get into that in just a little bit. Now, insecure people typically experienced an insecure attachment early in life, and they never learned how to interact with the world in a safe manner. But instead of learning how to develop secure attachments, offended people find it easier to play the victim and then blame others. Don't get me wrong, a lot of us grew up with an insecure attachment. The world wasn't safe. We couldn't trust others. We couldn't trust ourselves. But when you reach a point where you recognize that you're playing a part in damaging relationships, and especially if you've come to Christ, you recognize that, hey, you know what? I want to be a better person than I was yesterday, and I want to look more and more like the image of my Savior. Then we start to work on those areas of our lives that are not so healthy and productive. But that's not what easily offended people do. They want to stand their ground in those issues, and then they recognize that the issues are there. They just decide they're going to blame you for it. Easily offended people don't want healing. They want conformity. They want you to conform to their fragile self-image. And as long as you keep it intact, they feel good. And if they feel good, then they're good with you. And unfortunately, God's not going to bring healing to areas that we'd rather hide. So one of the things that I want you to be careful of is if you find yourself constantly, what's the word I'm looking for? Stressed, worried, in turmoil over the reaction of an easily offended person, you may be struggling with a level of codependency. You see, codependency says, if you're okay, I'm okay. If you're not okay, I'm not okay. So I need you to be okay. So what we do is if we're in this relationship with someone who's so easily offended and we say something that fractures their self-image and we're codependent, instead of allowing their flaws to show, instead of allowing them to see that they're the problem in the relationship, what happens is the codependent person is now scrambling and they're apologizing. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to say that. Or they're getting angry and defensive. And now you've got this toxic dance that's taking place. And that's what codependency is. Instead of being able to say, okay, this person has a problem and they're not seeing it, let me decide how I want to move forward in this relationship. Codependency is a bit more reactive and it looks to keep the relationship, hence the name codependency, because I need you to feel good. And that's why easily offended people are often in relationships with codependents, because the codependent person is willing to uphold their fragile self-image. Why? Because it upholds the relationship. Because remember, if their image is intact, they feel good. If they feel good, then they're good with you. And that's very important for somebody struggling with codependency. So if that is something that you are struggling with, my friend, I do want to invite you to check out our new course. It's called Conquering Codependency Biblically. This is an online course that has brought hundreds of people. We just launched this and I'm getting tremendous feedback on this. I'm so absolutely excited that it's bringing healing for people. We'll go ahead and include a link in the chat. And if you're watching on the replay, it will be in the description section below. Definitely check this out if you find yourself constantly reacting to these toxic people. So here's the question. Should I just write them off? Well, the answer to that is each case is going to vary. If there's value in the relationship, then it may be your turn to overlook the offense and enjoy the other fruits of your relationship. But if you are dealing with someone who harbors grudges against you and is always putting you in a position where you have to continually prove yourself to them while they don't repent and they don't acknowledge their part in the relationship and they don't do much to contribute to the growth of the relationship, then you're likely looking at someone who's only in it for the benefits that it brings to them. So at the end of the day, the choice is really going to be yours. Leaving a toxic relationship doesn't make you a bad person any more than staying in a relationship that's toxic makes you a better Christian. But I want you to remember this. Just because someone was offended by you, that doesn't automatically mean that you were offensive. I want to encourage you. Yes, examine your heart. Yes, examine your motives. Yes, take it to the Lord. But also remember that sometimes the problem lies within them and not you. Also, I want you to grab your Toxic People Survival Guide. This is my free gift to you to begin to learn how to identify and deal with all the difficult people in your life. I will go ahead and include a link in the chat and the description section below.